We're excited that you tuned in for a time of refreshing with Miss Aaliyah Bernard. Is your show. She's an author, motivator, inspirational speaker. Who's on fire to inspire the world. She's a girl. On fire, on fire. She said she's on fire. On fire to inspire. On fire to inspire. Inspiration, motivation, encouragement, empowerment. You need inspiration, a little bit of motivation. Encouragement as well as empowerment. Thank you for tuning in to the show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to the sponsors of the show. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to On Fire to Inspire. I am your host, Aaliyah, the Purpose Midwife. I want to thank you so much for joining us this beautiful Tuesday evening. While I thank our sponsors, I need y'all to do me a favor. Hit that share button for me. So I'm going to be thanking our sponsors. You're going to hit that share button, and then we're going to get started with this great, great topic and this awesome, awesome guest of ours, okay? So thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to mombizboss.org. If you are a mom, multiple operational manager, and you are either an aspiring entrepreneur or you are an entrepreneur, you want to join this team of women so that you can glean from each other, maybe collaborate. There's a monthly brunch that they have, and they have great, great speakers and great opportunities to network. So that's mombizboss.org. You want to join them, all right? Also, if you are a leader in any capacity and you need to add this book to your arsenal, it's called Leadership Inside Trajectory. It is by my big brother, Pastor Apostle Ricky DeSarette, and you can get that book at iworkfaith.com. Now, not only is he an author, he is a dynamics John Maxwell certified speaker and trainer. So if you need someone to come in and teach leadership or any kinds of different classes, he can go in and come into your organization and do that as well. And you can book him on iworkfaith.com because he is an awesome, excellent teacher. And then finally, last but not least, if you're in health and wellness and you are trying to stay healthy, get moving, but you want to be have fun with it, y'all need to join us on Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go over to Facebook World and type in @Come Dance with Mena, MENA. When I tell y'all we have an awesome time with Zumba, we have an awesome, awesome time. She mixes it up with, we have Zumba, we have line dance, we have a little bit of everything. And then once a month, we have a line dance, monthly line dance party. So thank you to all of you all who've been watching our reels. One of our reels has hit 190,000 views. We're like, what? Couldn't believe it. And then finally, if you don't have any of my books, you can get On Fire to Inspire, the book. And it's a book of inspiration and encouragement. We have the children's book that teaches foundational English and Spanish called A Learning Book Just for Me. This is my second child, y'all. Her name is Precious the Panda. And then finally, we have the Affirmations Journal and Coloring Book. And these tools are used for teen girls or women. So if you're in your place of self-care or you're trying to get to that place of self-care, these are some dynamic tools for that. Because it's about taking time out for you. We do everything for everybody else. We love on everybody else. But what time are you taking out for yourself? So that's not something that is negotiable. That's non-negotiable. You have to take time out for you. But we're not going to delay the time. We're going to grab our guest and bring her on in. Y'all, I tell you, we are the topic tonight is I was about to give you the title of her book. Topic tonight is just going to be so awesome because many people think that abuse looks like a certain thing. And there have been so many things. Women have been abused in other ways than physically, as well as men. You have narcissistic women that are abusing men. You have narcissistic men that are abusing women. But we're going to bring Kaleema on as she shares. So let's bring Kaleema on. Kaleema, welcome to On Fire to Inspire for your first time here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And here we go. A little slight delay. Welcome to the platform. How are you? Are you on mute? You're on mute. Michelle say, yay, Kalima. Hit your increase your volume and maybe that'll automatically take it off mute. Sometimes that may bypass and do it for you. And y'all know what we had we were testing everything and hadn't had any issues. Like 20 minutes ago. Um, let's see here. I don't know why I muted you. Hold on, let me see.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes, you have put me on mute, so I couldn't unmute myself.
I didn't even see why I muted you. I apologize. Welcome on Friday Inspire. How are you this evening?
Oh, wow. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners this evening.
Okay. My name is Kaleema Overton Ameen. I am from North Carolina. I just wrote my first book, Hidden in Plain Sight, and it definitely was a labor of love and healing. It is my first book. By day, I'm a policy analyst. I retired from the federal government during COVID to take care of my dad, and now I'm working as a consultant doing compliance review for research grants for another federal agency. But I just wrote my first book. I've always wanted to write a book. I never thought I would write this type of book. You know, I always thought maybe I would write a book of poetry and short stories because that's what I did growing up. But that's me. I'm, like I said, I'm from North Carolina. Um, I have a degree in English Lit, and I went to graduate school to study urban planning. And it just kind of took me down this path that a very long path that was a great path of 23 years of federal service. I'm very grateful for that. But now I just feel like I'm on my second leg of my journey. And I think that's it.
Okay. Now the topic that we have for tonight. What does the topic mean to Kaleema? What does this topic say will mean to
um,
you?
like I said, this was a labor of love and healing and hope. I experienced a very traumatic event, and I started writing about it as part of my therapy. And it actually just ballooned into a book. I did not set out to write a book, but once I started talking about the trauma that I experienced and being open about it, so many women came to me and told me, even friends I had for 20 and 30 years started telling me about trauma that they experienced that I didn't even know about until I started talking about it. And so then I had an opportunity to write a column about it, a 7 series column. And it was in the Muslim Journal. But then I was getting lots of messages in my inbox to say, hey, what about us? You wrote about Muslim women. What about the Christian women? It happens to everyone. And that's how the book came about. My brother-in-law told me that I definitely need to write, to help other women heal and to avoid the trauma that I experienced. And so for me, it means an opportunity to expose the many forms of hidden abuse and to let people see that the abuser and the abused, there's no set prototype. So I interviewed women who were Muslim and Christian and Catholic, Black, white, Hispanic, South American, and they told, their stories, of the different forms of abuse and trauma. So for me, it means an opportunity, to hopefully be a voice for the voiceless, and to help people to come forward and speak out about their trauma and their abuse. And also, it means an opportunity for people to heal. And, if we don't tell our stories and of triumph, not just of tragedy, but of triumph, people don't know that they can heal from this type of abuse.
That's beautiful. Because my question was next is going to be what led you to decide to write this type of book. But as you were journaling and finding your healing in it and finding some peace in that, what was that like? Was it like you were having to relive it, or was that like just what was that like when you first started that process?
Um, Yes, it was like reliving it for me as well as for the other women in my book. And I wasn't really journaling because I'm a policy analyst. I like to dig, 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 and I like to research things. So I wasn't journaling. I was just researching the different forms of abuse, researching narcissistic abuse, how it leads to abandonment. I was researching spiritual abuse, financial abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, just doing research. And it just ballooned into this book. And so, even just with the women that I interviewed for the book, we were all reliving the trauma. There was times where we had to just take a break. A couple of the women that I was interviewing would say, I can't do it today, because they were reliving trauma, and some of them were still in different stages of recovery, so it was still fresh. And then for me, it was happening in real time. I was writing the book while I was in therapy, while I was still going through the trauma, and I'm writing this book and doing this research. But for me, it was very healing because the more research I did, the more I realized, oh, wait a minute, there was no other way for this to turn out. And that actually gave me comfort. And people say, oh, I want closure. Well, closure is overrated. Get your own closure. Don't go back to that person who committed the abuse to get closure. You have to get your own closure. And I think researching it, because I'm a policy analyst, that's where I got my closure. When I understood that there was nothing else that could have happened other than what happened, because some people come into situations with ill intent and there's nothing you can do about it because you're not a part of that and you don't even know what's happening. And so I hope I answered your question.
You did because when you go into something from a pure place, but they have a different motive, so you have no control over that. So I love how you found peace without confrontation, because that confrontation could have brought some other stuff, depending upon what the other end looks like.
Yes.
Um, for someone who's listening to us and they're like, oh my God, they're speaking to me. What would you say to them as far as even finding peace? Because they're still in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them while they're trying to find their peace before they, make their exit plan or whatever it is that they're going to be doing?
Well, if they're still like in, an abusive situation, they have to really think of their safety first. And
Mhm.
sometimes when you're thinking about your safety, it means you can't move. You can't move right away, but you can plan, you know, and act on it later. But sometimes, or not sometimes, most often women are killed when they're trying to leave an abusive situation. When you decide to leave is the most dangerous part, the most dangerous time. And so you have to be very careful. And I don't talk a lot about physical abuse in my book, but all the other forms of abuse always happen before the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the psychological abuse, the financial abuse, the spiritual abuse. All of these things come first because if the physical abuse came first, you wouldn't be in that relationship. No one's going to go into a relationship where someone is abusing them. There's a grooming process. And so if someone is in that situation right now, I will want them to reach out to a trusted friend, or sometimes you have to reach outside of your circle, because the abusers who are very skilled at this. It's never their first time. They're very skilled and they will groom you. And not only will they groom you, they will groom your family, they will groom your friends, they will groom your coworkers, they will groom your religious community, and so everyone around you becomes kind of compromised if this person has groomed them. So you might have to reach out to a complete stranger that you have found to be a safe space to plan your next mode of action, if it's to leave or whatever the case may be, because that grooming is not just confined to you, the individual, it's everyone around you, because now you don't have a safe place to turn. Once you have been able to, find a safe space or a person that can assist you, and you do want to make sure you, of course, gather your important documents and things of that nature. But one of the things you want to do at that point also is to make sure you have someone who can provide an emotionally safe place. Reach out to a therapist, a counselor, a doctor, because these people can assist you not only with that transition, but to assist you with the aftermath. Because there's going to be, if the abuse was mental, physical, spiritual, and financial, the healing has to be mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. And a lot of times people skip that. They don't completely heal. So those are some of the things the recommendations I have in my book. The women in my book that I interviewed, they all were in different stages of healing. And they offered their own, uh, points of advice of how they healed and how they were continuing to heal. And even it was just kind of interesting that although the women all came from different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, their stories were all the same. If you read the book, you would think these women must have all been married to the same man. They had the same grooming process. The love bombing, the spirit breaking, and then the abandonment is what they do. It's the procedure, in the grooming.
You said the love bombing, the what?
The love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment. So that is the full title of the book, Hidden in Plain Sight. Are you being groomed for love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment?
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I did remember seeing a post you had that said something about to the effect of, are you being groomed for abuse or something? And I was like, that's deep. It made me want to read more. And so I was like, huh. Um, so the lady that's still in it, you've given her her answer. Now the woman that is, she's out of it
Mm-hmm.
and she's ready. She's on her stage of recovery and into that stage of healing. What would you speak to that woman?
Well, I would say that you definitely, even while you're in it and when you come out, you want to make sure you understand your legal rights. The only rights you have are those that you know about. No one's going to chase you down to tell you about your rights. And not only your legal rights, but your religious rights. And people skip this part. You have rights within your religion that might supersede or protect you beyond the rights of your state. And of course, there's a separation of church and state, but there is a way to make sure that your religious rights are covered. When you think about the marriage process, the marriage is a legal agreement and it's also a spiritual agreement, and you have a contract. And so, depending upon how you got married, where you got married, you might have more than one contract. And so, I would say the women who are coming out of it, move slowly, methodically, think 5 steps ahead, don't sign anything right away, and think about all of your rights. Make sure you contact an attorney. And you may have to explain to your attorney about your religious rights. Um, when you think about having a marriage license, it's a state marriage license, but you actually have legal rights, based on your religion, especially if you are a Muslim, you have a marriage contract. And the marriage contract and the legal marriage license are two different things. And the marriage contract spells out all of your religious rights. Christian women have these same rights, and as well as Jewish women have these same rights, and Catholics. And so these are some of the things I would say to think about within the confines of unraveling the marriage. So as I said, the abuse is mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. Your recovery is mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. And you want to make sure that you get an attorney and don't leave anything on the table. I would say even before all of that, in that grooming process, when you were dating, you should find out and get a background check. So that's a whole different story. I talk about that in my book about the background check. When you think about the risk, is very cheap and is very necessary. And if someone doesn't want you to do a background check, that lets you know already this is a problem. If they don't want you to talk to the previous wife, this is a problem. This is a red flag. If they don't bring you to their place of worship, red flag. If they don't integrate their life, because narcissists and people who are groomers, they put their life in silos, their home life, their religious life, their social life, their community life, and they don't integrate. So they're living like 4 different lives. If you're not a part of all of that, red flag.
Wow. So a woman could be married to a man for all those years, but not know the other aspects of his life.
Exactly. And this is one of the characteristics of the narcissist. People think, oh, because someone has bad behavior, they're a narcissist. No, bad behavior does not a narcissist make. Some people have bad behavior because they have no home training, because they're selfish, because they're just, they have all kinds of reasons for having bad behavior. Or maybe they experienced some abuse growing up, or they had a less than favorable situation growing up, and they just have bad behavior. But the narcissist is beyond that. When you think about the narcissist is on a spectrum. At the top of this spectrum is the serial killer. I'm not just making it up. I'm saying this is what it is. And at the bottom of this narcissistic spectrum is the person who's just overly self-indulged, right? An attention seeker. And so the person who is the groomer, the narcissistic groomer, they're going to compartmentalize their life because they're always going to have a secret life. And you're not going to know about all these different things they do in their secret life. And so it makes it very easy for them to just disappear. So in my book, all of the women experience abandonment, including myself, at different stages of their marriages. One woman experienced abandonment during the courtship stage, one during, they had this huge wedding, and then they go on the honeymoon. And as soon as they get on the plane, he becomes like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and he abandons her a couple of times on the honeymoon. He just disappears. Then you wonder, like, why would these people disappear? Well, they're living a whole separate life. One man was living a life of crime. One man addicted to pornography. A lot of narcissists are addicted to alcohol, drugs, pornography, all types of seedy behaviors. They disappear into seedy hotels. These are all the stories of the interviews, of the women in my book. But on the surface, they're living a pristine life as a Muslim, as a Christian, as a Catholic. They're educated. You think, oh, it takes a dumb person to fall for this. The narcissist doesn't pick low-lying fruit, because their goal is to build a persona, to build a fake life, right? So you're going to pick from the top, right? Not the fruit that's on the ground, right? Because you have to build this persona. So while they're grooming everyone around you, building this fake persona and living this other life, when you report the abuse, they say, I've never seen that. He was in church every Sunday. He was at the mosque every Friday. He was at the synagogue every Saturday. He donates heavily to the community. He's always volunteering. I only see him dote on you publicly. But privately, that's where the demeaning, that's the stage 2. So you have the grooming, showering you with gifts, affection, and it's for everyone else's, it's for everyone else to see, because they're setting up the stage. If they constantly are showing you affection in public, when you come out publicly, everyone will say, I never saw that. She must be crazy. She must be making this up. He's a model citizen. That's the grooming stage. Not only you, grooming everyone around you. And then the demeaning and the spirit breaking is the second stage that I talk about in my book, where now it's like pick, always making you feel insecure, or maybe demeaning you or putting you down, even for just earning money because you earn more money. It could be, you're to make you think you're too thin or you're too fat, or something is just not quite right, right? And they start to pick away at your self-esteem, um, turn you against your family, or tell you your family, oh, they're always talking about you, or your friends are not good enough. What is wrong with them? Where do you get these friends? Why do you have these friends? And they start to pick away at your defenses and your social circles and those who are there to protect you. That's stage 2, the demeaning and the spirit breaking. And then the stage 3, of course, is the disappearing act, the abandonment, which may come with the physical abuse, because each stage is going to be elevated, and then they just disappear. People just disappear. And it's easy to disappear because if you're a part of a religious community, well, you can disappear into other places where you're not going to find the religious community, and you just kind of disappear off the face of the earth. And so I'm sorry, I just kind of went on, but go ahead. I'll stop.
My cousin, who's also a co-pastor, said this is such in-depth information. It
Yeah.
is, and it's amazing to see. Now, I would love to know, like with some of your women that you interviewed in your book, what was the longest length of time that one of them was married to one of the narcissists, and then he just kind of disappeared on her?
Here. Um, she was married for 13 years. Um, and then when now in interviewing her, because I did the interviews at first, they answered written questions, and then we had like Zoom or this type of interview. And even after 8 years, she was still very much traumatized by the abuse and the grooming process. Um, and she she just wanted the model marriage that her parents had, and he just kind of psychologically tortured her constantly. He never put hands on her. And that's what people say, oh, well, they didn't hit you. But there's abuse that will damage you, indefinitely, without ever, there at least no broken bones, no busted lips, no no bloody lips, but the damage is still there. And so, but she was married for 13 years. And then after continuous abuse, he just shows up one day and say, I want a divorce. And he just disappears, or in another case in my book, he just, this particular one just comes home and says, I want a divorce and you need to get out. And then while she's packing, she finds a ring for the next woman who's not aware of anything. And then after that woman, he does the same thing. It's a continuous behavior. So this is something that the narcissist does that, is beyond bad behavior. Grooming, demeaning, breaking spirit, spirit breaking. They use religion as a cover. When they talk about a man having a beard, they use religion as a cover. They use education as a cover. They use social status and money as a cover. And they hide behind these things because people glorify that. And so they hide behind these things while they continuously abuse their wives, their children, their parents. They abuse co-workers.
So there is no look to this person. He looks like the model citizen and the perfect husband, and you look like the perfect family to the public, and you get home and he makes you so like that little.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the 3 stages, the love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment, can be different lengths of time, but it's always the same process. It never changes, but it could be different lengths of time. Like the grooming could be quick. The love bombing could be very quick. It's usually going to be quick. The narcissist is not going to last past 4 months of the charade. They will go on to the next person because they want it to go very fast. So before you even know what's happening, now you're married, and they will leave like an F5 tornado in the night, and destroy everything in their path. So it's always going to be a very quick courtship. And when people use terms of endearment very early on, they're lavishing you with gifts. They're talking about marriage. Oh, I love you. And you just met yesterday. You're the perfect wife for me. We're perfect together. Everything about you, they They agree with everything. They love what you love, they like what you like, whatever you say you need, because women talk too much. We tell everything that we want in a man. And so he's, oh, let me pretend to be that. They start talking about what they need, what they want, and he pretends to be that. So that makes his job easier.
So, what's the shortest length of time that one of these women actually dated and then they courted them and then married?
3 months. And that happens often in the Muslim community,
Okay.
because there is typically a very short courtship to avoid, having children out of wedlock and these types of situations. So that's a great place for the narcissist to hunt, because they know it's going to be a short courtship. And in some Christian communities as well, you may find the same thing, because it's a good reason, but the narcissist turns it around to their benefit, not to have these long courtships where you may end up living together or having children out of wedlock and things of this nature. But so the shortest was 3 months, but all of them had the same quick grooming process, because if the person comes in and they're using religion as a cover, and it's like, oh, we have all these things in common. We're going to practice the religion together. We're going to build a community together. We're going to, if you say, oh, I want to start, a Christian school. Oh, me too. I wanted to start a business. Me too. I want to start a bookstore. Me too. I want to, travel and go on a religious, Hajj or a pilgrimage. Me too. Everything, is me too. And so it creates this false sense of we're soulmates, but the person is just an actor on the stage. The narcissist is a shapeshifter. They will become whatever they find out you need.
Wow, shapeshifter. That sounds. Ooh.
Yeah.
I met a young lady who had been married to a guy for about 10 years. And as you're speaking, I'm like, oh my God, this is the man she married. Um, so you said they don't pick low, what did you say, low lying fruit?
Lying fruit. Well, I said that to say that oftentimes people blame the abuser, and they say, well, you couldn't see that, or how, or she must be stupid, or she must be dumb, or she must be, how can you be so unaware? But the narcissist, like I said, is a shapeshifter, right? And so they're going to become whatever you need, whatever you say that you need. And when I say they don't pick low lying fruit, is because they're also very vain, and they're trying to build a persona of having this pristine life, right? Good Christian family, good Muslim family, good Catholic family. So they're going to really target someone also for their ego. They're going to target someone who people, someone who has, how can I put it? They're very envious people. So if you have a good career, you have good family ties, you have good community ties, you have all of these things, they're going to be envious, and they're going to want that. And they're going to say, look at me, I have this person, so I'm good too. She or he is all of these things, so I am too. And and so that's what I mean by, they're not going to just pick people who, oftentimes people see an abuser and they say, oh, this is something that happens to poor people or Black people or people who don't have any faith, no religion. This doesn't happen to people like us. It doesn't happen to people like me. I'm educated, I believe in God and I do these things. So that's what I meant by the low lying fruit. So, it's not a social economic status type thing. Some of the worst narcissists are people who are highly educated. One of the ladies in my book, the person that abused her was a psychologist. They got engaged and he abused her. And so that's what I mean when I say that there's no look to it. And you can't say, oh, that's a poor people's problem. That's a white folks problem. Mm-mm. The women
Mm,
are all from different backgrounds, different religions, different ethnic groups, different levels of education, and it's not just a poor people's problem or an uneducated people's problem.
Michelle says, wow. And Karima says, this can be tragic to a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you said he's a shapeshifter, that could be unless you're very discerning and you can pick up, the red, because you see red flags sometimes ahead of time.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes you're so, oh, but he's so perfect. Because when that young lady was describing things to me, I was like, but you saw that because you're telling me about it now. She said, but I didn't want to see it at the time. But
Right.
by the time she saw it, she had already said, I do.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, Go ahead.
One of the ladies in my book, he was like the knight in shining armor. You know what I'm saying? The knight on the white knight on the horse and all that kind of stuff they talk about. And
Uh-huh.
she had to have this huge, ceremony, this big wedding. He wined and dined her. He, showered her and her family with gifts. It was just perfect. And then as soon as the wedding was over, like I said, they got on the plane and he started demeaning her, calling her names. They got out of the country and now he just disappears twice on her. You know, um, so those red flags are there, but it's kind of like if I was from another planet and I don't know what a red light is, I just keep going because I don't know this information. And so the red flags are there in hindsight, but my book is to help you see the red flags up front,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one and done. You know, um these this oh sweetheart and baby stuff out the gate, and I love you out the gate, be done, keep it moving. They're not introducing you to their family and their friends, and they're not taking you to their place of worship. you know um these are red flags that we overlook because all the other stuff is happening, everything else is in place. And they tell on themselves because they love to brag. And all of them in the book, the narcissist told about heinous things that they did, unspeakable things, and they say it as a joke. Be careful when people say things as a joke. Or they talk about it as if one man talked about it as if it was his past. Oh, I used to do this. And it turns out it was his present. But if I have a past behavior that is unfavorable and I quit that behavior, let's say if my past behavior is, I don't know, smoking cigarettes, I don't smoke cigarettes, and I've quit, I'm not going to keep talking about it. Oh, yeah, I used to smoke cigarettes 10 years ago. I don't do that anymore. That's one and done. I'm not going to keep glorifying and talking about smoking cigarettes or whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
and he continued to do that, talking about his previous life, but it turned out he was still in a secret life with a relationship, selling drugs, doing all types of things. And so you have to be careful. It's like so many tiny droplets of red flags. Um, I would say if you meet their family and their friends, you should ask questions. Oh, yeah, he said he wanted to start this business. What did you think about that? And they're looking crazy. He said he wanted to start a religious school. What do you think about that? You know, um, find out. You have to talk, and sometimes family cover up for these people, so it can be kind of hard. But the best protection is to make sure, my grandmother used to say, you don't know a person until you've been with them for a year and seen all of their behaviors throughout the seasons. But a narcissist won't last that long. A groomer won't last that long because they need instant everything. They won't last
Kaleema,
a year.
did any of your panel of your interviews, or any of them that they met the family and they had a brother or sister and they found out like, oh yeah, you're the fifth wife, and you're like, he told me he was married before, but not that many times. Did you have something
Oh,
like that?
yes, that was well, that was one of the, and I'm laughing not because it's funny, but one of the ladies I interviewed, her the man that she was going to get engaged to, she found out that he had been engaged like 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, not in my book, but I've spoken to women after that who, people have been married 8 or 9 times. And sometimes this happens, in the Muslim community because they may not have a legal marriage for whatever reason. They may have a religious marriage, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's how some of these things happen. And or even in some cases where the previous marriage just ended and you don't know that, and you've been dating, and in some states you can get a divorce in 30 days. And so they may talk about this previous marriage as if it was a while ago, but they just, in one of the cases, she said, if only I had gone to his house 2 weeks before that, I would have found his wife there. And so these are some of the things that came about, with the book. So what I hope to do is to expose the red flags, expose the behavior, the policy, and the procedure. And so people can protect themselves, not just women, but men, because those men who are the vanguards for their family, who stand in the cracks, who have mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, nieces that they want to protect, they need to read my book, because men are fooled by the narcissist as well. And they want to protect the women in their family.
In your studies, have you seen, did you run into some narcissistic women that had these kind of behaviors?
I did not do any study on narcissistic women,
Okay.
because, as I said, it came about with me researching narcissism and abandonment, because that is what had happened to me, and I was researching it as a way to understand what had happened to me. But I didn't write about the women. A brother asked me, are you going to write a second book, to talk about women? Now, the psychologists, psychiatrists, the experts agree that more men are narcissistic than women, because of the characteristics that come with it, being, arrogant, or, being aggressive, and this type of behavior. But these are not necessarily bad traits to be aggressive. It's not a bad trait to be persistent in a relationship, but it is something that is more commonly found in men. And so narcissism is also more commonly found in men because of the type of characteristics that come with it. But I don't know if I would write a second book about women and that type of abuse. I'm just trying to get this first book, get this first book done. But really, I just wanted to research what had happened to me. But then I found out that, as horrible as my own story was, there were stories that were far worse, because I was in a position to be able to recover, because I had support from family, I had support from community. I was able to support myself, financially. But, some women end up homeless. They end up living in cars, with their children, because of this behavior of abandonment. And so the book is about narcissism, but it's also about abandonment in the community, and the tragedy that comes from it, from the community, from the family. Our religious institutions are suffering because of it. And that's really the areas that I focus on in the book, is about this abandonment and how it affects the women, the children, the religious community, the community at large.
Gotcha. So, wow, this is so deep. It's so much deeper than I thought it was going to be. Kaleema said you never fully recover from physical and mental abuse. That was what Kaleema said.
Mm-hmm.
With the right, I'm gonna let you answer that. You've done the research.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's of course case by case, because the level of abuse, varies. And some abuse may be so extreme that people may never be able to recover. It doesn't mean they can't go on to live a productive life, but they will still have, post-traumatic stress. There's also compounded post-traumatic stress, which is the hardest to treat, when you have multiple injuries, that have not been healed. And so, but there is, hope and recovery. You may live a different type of life, having seen this ugly evil that you didn't know about before, but it doesn't mean you can't go on to have a meaningful life, and a life, full of joy, and full, of supportive people around you. and while you continue to heal.
Good answer. Wow. Anything else you want to share before we ask about the book? About how we can get it when it comes out and all that good stuff. Anything else you want to share?
I think I've probably talked a whole lot. So
It's okay. It's very informative. Don't y'all agree? I mean, this is the kind of information that back in the day they would call the elephant in the room.
Mhm,
And it's no
mhm,
longer time for the elephant to be in the room. It's time for the elephant to be exposed so that lives can be saved. Because I know too many people whose family members lost lives to. We even had here in my hometown early this year where the guy and the girl, you know, she I think she broke up with him or tried to break up with him, and he killed her in the parking lot at the job. So if someone reads a book like this and see the warning signs, they could make the proper preparations to circumvent some of this stuff.
right, exactly. Um, yes, I think that these signs are, we just have to, oftentimes we say, oh, we hear people say, oh, I have butterflies, when he's around. Well, that might be the warning sign, not butterflies, because this is a great thing. So we have to really learn how to listen to our bodies, learn how to listen to our hearts and our minds and our intuition, because we dismiss a lot. We dismiss a lot. When I look at all of the red flags after the abandonment occurred, in my situation, I thought about, like, oh my God, like every red flag that I researched was there. Every single red flag was there.
Wow.
And so when we think about when we meet people, as women, we're taught to be, not to be rude. You want to be likable, but we need to stop that. We need to ask the hard questions. Ask the follow-up question. If he says, oh yeah, I want to do such and such, well, why do you want to do this? Or if they start talking about the previous wife, and say, can I speak to her? Don't be afraid to ask that question. Can I speak to your previous wife? There's, someone said to me, well, they're always going to say something bad. Not really. You don't really want to know the who shot John. You want to know, when this relationship ended, how were you treated?
That's good.
Because there's always a way to end a relationship. Sometimes things just don't work. Everyone could be doing exactly what they said they're going to do, and it just doesn't work. But the question you want to know is, when it didn't work out, how were you treated? Did he just run off and abandon the marriage? Did he demean you, beat you? Did he take away financial resources? Did he kick you out of the house? Did he try to smear your name in the community so no one would protect you from his abuse? Or did he leave with care? Did he treat your children with care? If you have them together or you have children of your own, how did he leave this relationship? You don't need to know what happened. You just need to know how he left. And that would give you a sign. And if he says he doesn't want you to talk to his previous wife, well, you got your answer right there. That's a problem.
That's good. Karima asked, was this book a healing for you? And you answered that pretty early on that
Yes.
it was.
Yes. It was. I do say in the book that I'm writing the book prematurely, because I was still very much traumatized while I was writing the book. But I felt that if I didn't write it then, that other people would be hurt while I'm healing. Who knows how long it would take to heal? I
That's
feel
good.
mostly healed, but I know that I'm not. I had a therapist and a counselor, a man and a woman, a Christian and a Muslim. I had a whole lot of people putting me back together, right? And of course, that can't happen in 9 months that it took me to write the book, and the next year it took them to, to get it on the street. So, it was written in real time. I was healing, but I felt like if I wait, people will suffer. And not that I can't, I don't know, I'm not a genius or anything. I just know, what I went through, what the women in my book went through, and they were struggling even with the interviews. but they were willing to do it because they felt the same way. Like, I don't want anyone to suffer the way I suffered. And so we have to open up these wounds that are not even completely healed. Then we're just going to open up these wounds and get this information out.
I had a question that just kind of came up in my spirit. Were these men older than these women, or not every time?
That's a good question. And yes, because
Mm.
one thing, the narcissist is all about appearances. So he's always going to, each wife is going to be younger than the next wife, than the last wife, I mean, because they're all about appearances, not only socially and in the religious community, at work. It's all about the appearance, of, this type of family life. And they're going to want, the best of everything. Right. But yes, I actually didn't even think about that too much and didn't really talk about that in the book. But all of the men were quite, at least, 10 years older than the women, than each woman in the book.
That's what I was thinking, because I was thinking in terms of people that I've talked to.
Hmm.
And their ex-spouses were like 10 years older, and I was like, oh, and I was putting that as a common denominator. So it just came to me to ask you, was that something you found to be that in your research? Wow.
Yes, they were
That's
all older. They all had some type of addictive behavior, whether it was drugs, alcohol, gambling, pornography, sex addiction. They all had an addictive behavior. They were all older, and accomplished. I picked those on purpose because people think that educated people don't behave that way. Well, yeah, they do. Supposedly, spiritual religious people don't behave that way. Yeah, they do. Ministers, psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, professors, they do.
wow.
Politicians, doctors, policemen, they do.
Hmm. Wow, wow, wow. Final question. Did you seem to find any in the that were more in more leadership roles that were like that? Like they were so they gravitated to something where they felt like they were in control.
Yes, because the narcissist loves a stage. One of them even changed religions to stay on the stage, right? Um, so wherever they can get an audience, because they want to be admired, they want to be worshiped, catered to, they want people to put them on a pedestal. The narcissist has a very neat trick. They can get you to brag for them so they can pretend to be humble. Oh, yes, they will get you, the wife, to do the promotion of whatever they're doing. And so they can lay back and act like they're humble, because the narcissist has the thing that they don't have, and they showed scientific research about the brain, they don't have the empathy. And they're good at mimicking empathy. They mimic everything. They mimic sorrow, empathy, compassion. They look at the behavior of others and they mirror the behavior. So if you're sad, they may mirror you and pretend to be sad when they really don't care. you know um and so they mirror everyone around them to appease them, and this is how they draw them in. Oh, we have the same feeling about this, we must be soulmates, this must be destiny. You love what I love and you hate what I hate. But it's a mirroring thing that they do. Babies do it, and narcissists don't have emotional maturity. But if when you're playing with a baby and you make faces and they make faces, if you act like you're angry or mad, they will become, sad. And pets do it too. If you have a dog or a cat, they mimic your behavior. If you're having a bad day, they're having a bad day. But this is something, the intellectual growth in the narcissist is typically stunted. They may be highly intelligent, but they have no intellectual capacity, no social growth. They have no empathy. And they often show up in places where they're volunteering in places because they're mimicking those around them so they can appear to be safe.
Did you see? This is getting so interesting. I know we're going to wrap up soon, but did you see any of these men saw this in their own fathers, or they're mimicking even what they saw? Did you get any of that?
To have, they may, yes, some of them had an abusive father, but they blamed the mother for the abuse. And that's another thing, a red flag. They all talk really poorly about their family when they're not there. But when they're around the family, they're doting on them. Or they may do it to friends or your family and your friends, but they have, abusive situations with their fathers, or the fathers abuse the mothers, abandon the family, but they blame the mothers for the abuse. And this is a huge red flag that you wouldn't readily see in the beginning, especially if they're doting on the mother, but they take no accountability, even for the previous wives or what have you. And you will find, if you dig a little bit, they have the same behavior over and over again, a pattern of behavior.
Michelle said her abuser was 5 years older than her, and he worked as an executive for a Fortune 500 company.
Yes, they're going to be very career driven, and then and say that they want that out of you, but when you exhibit that, that's when the demeaning will start. That's when they will try to remove you from your pedestal that they put you on, because there can only be one success story in the house, and it's not you, it's the narcissist.
Wow.
So what she's saying, you know I'm not sure, but she may also include that, oh yeah, he pretended to want my success until I started to have success, and then he probably started demeaning or making her feel self-conscious, or that's not a good idea. Why would you want to do that? You're not good at that, or how much money do you need anyway? That's what was said to me, because I was, successful in my career.
Wow. Michelle, did you experience that as well? I mean, it's him being an executive in a Fortune 500 company. I could see her belittling her in that capacity. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. I tell you. Um, this is very interesting. I mean, like I said, when you deal with women in what I do, you hear so many different stories, but then you start, as you're talking and you're putting all this together, and you're like, okay, yeah, that was that person, this was this person, even down to the point where the women were just really classy women, but they demean them so much where they second guess who they were,
Mm-hmm.
just very going women, and they made them forget the woman that they were when they met.
Right. And that comes from the demeaning and the gaslighting, turning things around all the time. That didn't happen the way you said. There's the narcissist prayer. It says, it didn't happen that way. And if it did, I didn't mean it, and if I did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, you deserved it anyway. That's the narcissist prayer. Like, yeah, it didn't happen. And if it did, well, pretty much you deserved it. Or it didn't happen. It wasn't that bad, you know? And so that's the gaslighting, like that. And that's just what they do
Wow.
as
So
part of.
women hidden in plain sight be coming out to the world, and how can we get a copy of
I
this
am
book?
anxiously waiting on the complimentary box of books. And like every day I'm running to my door and it's just, my thing goes off and it's just somebody going by walking their dog. But my complimentary box of books should come any day now. And once I approve that, because to this point it's been, on my laptop. And so they want me to approve the books in my hand. And then once I do that, then it will become available. So any day now, I'm going to have an unboxing of the books live on Facebook. And so you will see the book the same time I see the book. I'm not going to open the box, and I'm going to open it on Facebook. And so we can, have some fun with that. I've been trying to do some things that, were fun, because it's a very heavy topic. Some people have lifelong depression. People, have suicide and become homeless. And, from this issue, So I don't want to, belittle it at all. But I'm looking forward to and pray that, if it can help just one person, you know, then I would feel like, it's a success. Because if one person sees a flag and says, oh, and it reads the book and says, I see this and I'm going to walk away, you know, that would, yeah.
Now, so will this be on your page? You have a website already in place? What do we need to?
Well, the best way is to follow me on Facebook at Kaleema Overton Ameen. I will have a webpage, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube channel. The publisher is setting all of those things up for me. I'm just kind of out here early, speaking with people about the book. So all of those things will come once I get the final box of books. I mean the initial box of complimentary books and get that approved. Is the publisher's process. They said that sometimes people get the book and say, oh, I thought it was going to be glossy, or oh, I thought it was going to be a little lighter. And so they don't, put them in the stores until you approve that first box. So the best way to stay updated on it is to go to my Facebook page and to follow me, or you can also subscribe to my email list for Hidden in Plain Sight, and that link will also be on the page, and you'll get automated updates. I send out emails like every couple of weeks about different topics, talking about some of these red flags, and also giving updates about the book availability.
Okay. Michelle did respond back. She said he used my success to make him look better. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And Karima said abuse can make you feel ashamed, and the abuser continues to tell you that you're not adequate and that you don't measure up.
That you won't find anybody better than me, or they'll make you feel like they'll play the victim at the same time while they're being the abuser. That's another nice, neat trick that the narcissist knows, how to be the abuser and the victim all at once and keep things stirred up like you're in a tornado, and up doesn't look like down, and down doesn't look like left, and left doesn't look like right, and you don't know what's happening. They like to keep constant confusion. If you meet someone who's constantly causing confusion and chaos, if something's not quite right, like you go to dinner with someone, they invite you to dinner, the Thanksgiving dinner, and the turkey is not done all the way, and you don't want to say anything. You push the meat around the plate. Something's not quite right. You just want to listen to yourself. Sometimes when something is too good to be true. I read a book during my research, and it was saying that most people don't make a good impression. Sincere, like open people, transparent people, they rarely make a first good impression because they're being transparent. It's the person that's perfect, that perfect first impression. You got to dig deeper, because rarely people do that. But it's always going to be something not quite right, something always too perfect, something a little off, or they may have a little temper that comes out of nowhere, or they may say something that doesn't add up. They will purposely plant lies just to see how much they can get away with, just to test you out, to see what you will accept. Tell a nice little white lie to see if they can get away with it, and then it's on.
Wow. But y'all make sure you go by her Facebook page and go sign up on the email list and follow her, because she's going to be doing that live unboxing when she's
Yes.
and I'm excited for you. This is an exciting time. It's like, for me, it was like having my second baby.
Oh yeah, it's like having a baby.
So Princess the Panda was my first book, the children's book, and it was like having my first baby, my second baby. So you're gonna be, yeah, it's a birth baby. It's a birth
baby. You go through all these labor pains before you get to that. By the time you're sick of it, it's over. Like by the time you're sick of being pregnant, at 2 weeks before due date, and your feet swell up, now you're over it, right? That's how the book was. It's like I was tired of reading my own book, because the publisher were going around and around and around and making edits. And I'm like, I'm sick of this. And then it was over. Then it's over and done. I was like, okay.
So congratulations
Yeah.
on completing. I'm not going to say completing your healing, but completing the journey to create the unset for others to heal, to walk in the purpose. Because sometimes there's a purpose for the pain, and so you use that pain to pursue part of the purpose that God has for you. So um,
I
I
do want
give.
to, if I can say one more thing when you mentioned that. I do want to tell, to tell anyone who is experiencing this kind of pain, um, that what I thought was the worst thing that could ever happen to me brought about the best thing that ever happened to me. It brought about something that I didn't even know I had the power to do. And God has promised all of us that after every hardship, we are going to have ease. He's promised us that Satan will meet us on the path. And the only way he can do that is if you're on the right path. He's not meeting those people that's over there doing all this foolishness. They're
Mm-mm,
already with him. He's not wasting time on them. But that trial, that struggle, it's part of your growth. And you have to know that, that God is going to bring you out on the other end. Even in the
mm-mm,
darkest of times, I knew, I don't know when and how, but I know that God is going to bring me out on the other end. And I just
mm-mm.
have to wait on, work and wait. Not just sit and wait, work and wait on that to
Yeah,
come out of the other end.
absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, congratulations on that. And I pray that so many people are men and women are able to read this so they won't be desensitized by um, the acts. Like I said, they love a stage, so they're not desensitized, but they see the red flags and they run early,
Yeah.
instead of you're in it. And then, like the lady married 14 years, or, and then he just leaves her. And so that's traumatic, being in that cycle, in that circle. So thank
Oh,
you again for joining us. We appreciate it. And you got to keep us posted on upcoming things, because this is the first of many of things that you will be doing, I'm sure. So
okay. And
um,
I'll drop those links, on your
please.
page so people can find me. And thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed this. And
You are so welcome, and make sure you come back and listen to Dr. Chanel next week, because hearing her story is going to be like, wait a minute, they were twins. So yes, because there's some similarities, not quite exact, but there are some similarities. Of like, yeah, yeah. But thank you again.
okay. I look forward to hearing her story as well. Thank you so much again for the invitation.
You're welcome. All right, y'all. If y'all miss any of Kaleema's interview, you've got to go back and listen to the replay. I want y'all to do me a favor. Go over to our YouTube page and go subscribe. And I need y'all, when the show is over, I need y'all to go over, subscribe, like, and put in a comment that whatever stood out to you, what pulled on your heartstring, what is it that she said that you're like, wow. So I need you to do that at the end of the show. Go subscribe, like, and then comment for us. And then finally, I need y'all to come back next week. We're gonna have Dr. Chanel, Crystal Chanel, coming next week, and Dr. Crystal Chanel, is her topic is unstoppable. So we're a little early in preparing for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That is generally in October, but we're getting people ready for some things emotionally, mentally now, because there are so many people that have been reaching out to me that are going through. And so we're trying to do is help them. As she said, she had two counselors putting her back together again, because she said you got to get the emotional, the spiritual, the mental support back in place, because those are the places that were broken. You got to get that mending and that healing and those portions as well. So I am Aaliyah, the Purpose Midwife, and I am thankful that you all joined us and stayed with us tonight. We had a great, great topic. Y'all make sure you follow her so that you can see. Because when I tell y'all this is so loaded, so y'all can imagine what the book is going to be loaded with. Because you're going to have firsthand accounts from other women from every ethnicity, not every ethnicity, but many ethnicities and different religions. All right, so we'll see y'all back same time, same place next week on Friday Inspire. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Good night.